So welcome to part 2 of the Granny Square bag class. This is the one I had shown last week. I wanted to show Ingrid, who is on here, lined this one for me. I'm gonna turn it inside out really quick, and has offered to write up just a description on how to do it. Right, Ingrid? That I can then share with people. I'll be able to share it on this site. So it really, really makes the bag really nice. So she said she got fiddly and she did the points, but you said you could probably just do it straight across and it would be a little easier. And she stitched it with her machine, and I'll show it under the camera. So it's just stitched in. The bottom is not stitched in, which is how most bags are, which is great because when I get stuff in there I don't want in there and I have to wash it, I can just pull it out like this and wash that part, and then stuff it back in. But it really, I think, finishes off the bag really, really nice. So today I'm going to show you how to join your squares. So everybody should have their 13 squares. This is the one I'm going to put together today. Finished in your joining color, and I'm going to show you how to join them, and then I'm going to show you how to do straps. Okay. And I had a nice little class this morning in the shop, so I got to practice some stuff on them. So let's switch over here. Feel free to jump in with questions at any time, because I fully admit I'm exhausted and I may absolutely leave something out. All right, so let's share that. Okay. So I just wanted to show up close here really quick. I can zoom in. You can see where I don't know if you can see where Ingrid joined. I think there's too much glare from the light. Where she stitched, you can't even see where she stitched it. She was so good. That looks really, really good. All right, so that's the finished bag, and I'm going to show you the strap on this one in just a little bit, but we're going to start with joining our squares. All right, so you should all have, let's change that. Should all have this little diagram. Okay. For your 13 squares. So we are going to do them in this order. So have this with you. She had done them with a join as you go method. So she's got in her directions, adding the joining color as you go. We've eliminated that step, but the order in which we join them together, the numbering system still works. Okay. And we did figure out the best way to join them so you don't have to weave in quite as many ends. So I'm going to show that to you today. All right. Let me over here. I bet this will work much better. With something like this. Or lighter at least. Let me brighten this up a little. Okay. All right. So when you're joining your squares, a couple of things you can do. If you are unsure, we'll join that one out. If you start to get confused, and we had somebody in class today she was sure when she was going to get confused when she got home. So I suggested she take a stitch marker and a little piece of paper and write a number on all of her squares, so that because you're going to be joining them right sides together in different directions. That way if she wasn't sure she was joining the correct side, she would have the number on the square to know that, oh, yes, I'm supposed to join 1 to 3 and 3 to 2 and not 1 to 2. Okay, so you can certainly do that ahead of time if you want to, if you feel like you're going to get confused. I'm going to show you how to do the joining on a couple of squares, and then I'm going to piece it together because it would take me forever to join this all here on Zoom. I'm going to then kind of mimic the joining with stitch markers so you can see how it all lays out. Okay, so let's start with the joining. And let me zoom in just a little bit further here.
That's your phone.
Okay, so the first thing that we join, let me get my little diagram in front of me here. We're going to start with squares 1, 2, and 3. Okay, square 1, square 2, square 3. Square 1 and square 2 do not join to each other. They only join to 3, which is a center square. It's going to have something joined on all 4 sides at this point. Okay, so I'm going to start by joining square 1 to square 3. And I'm going to use my yarn in a way that I'm going to work across this way to join it. And then I can join here to here so I don't have to cut my yarn. Okay, if it gets too confusing when you get to the end and you feel like you're in the wrong place, cut your yarn. It's just an end to weave in. It's not a big deal. I was just trying to avoid so many ends to weave in. Okay, so that's where we're going to start. 1 to 3. All right, when you're joining these squares, and it makes a really, really lovely join, we're going to do a slip stitch join. And to do a slip stitch join, I think we need some yarn. Make sure so I can go. You are going to join the squares with right sides together. Okay, I've crocheted over my ends, but I have not double checked them and I have not trimmed them yet, which is totally fine. You can do it at the end. Okay, so don't worry about it. It actually is also very helpful because I am very clear about which side is the right side and which side is the wrong side. All right, so to join, we're going to start a slip stitch on your hook. And we are going to join with right sides together right into the chain space of a corner and just slip stitch to join those 2 corner spaces together. So I'm going through both of them. 1 and 3. Over, pull through, pull through. Okay, now to get a really nice join on the right side, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Here are, I'm going to pull this out just for a second. Here are our V's along the edge of both of them. We are going to, instead of going underneath like we typically do, both legs of a V and both legs of this V, it would make a little bit of a bulky join and not quite as pretty on the right side as that's, there we go, and not quite as pretty on the right side. So instead of going underneath both of those, here's how we're going to do it. We are going to join, here's the first double crochet on this side, so the square that's closest to you. I am only going to go underneath the front loop, so the loop that's closest to me. And on the back square, the one that's further away, there's the double crochet. I'm going to go through the back loop and I'm going to slip stitch together. Okay, So those are the two loops. Let me put this on here. So the front loop of this square, you might have to twist it a little, back loop of this square, yarn over and pull all the way through. And you're going to do that all the way across. Go into the next stitch. So it's a one-to-one matching. So the front loop of this square, of this stitch, excuse me, the back loop of that stitch, yarn over, pull through for a slip stitch. So I'm going to do a couple and I'm going to show you what that gives you when you do that. So under the front, under the back, yarn over, pull all the way through, under the front, back, all the way through. I did not block these squares ahead of time, mostly because I finished the last one this morning. You certainly could block them if you're afraid they're not quite the same size. But I recommend, I'm going to get about halfway across the square here. Back loop. Back loop. If you miss a loop, don't worry about it. All right, so I'm not even quite halfway, but let me zoom out just a little here. Okay. What I want to make sure is, as you can see, I'm not just laying them flat. I'm not quite meeting my end here. So maybe I missed a loop here. I just want to make sure, and it might just be that it just needs to stretch just a little. If I get here to the end and I'm not quite meeting up, it will look wonky when I open it up. If I can figure out that they're not quite meeting up ahead of time and I need to bridge a gap here, if I need to skip one of these back loops to make it meet, it's kind of like mattress stitching in knitting, where you do a few and then you pull it tight and you check to see they're matching up. They're not quite matching up. Like I feel like I have a little bit extra on this back one. So I'm going to go into my next front loop. And I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to go into the next one. And that will just help tighten it up a little bit. What you don't want to see, and it already looks better. What you don't want to do is wait till the very end to do that because it will get wonky. You want to try to lose that unevenness somewhere in the middle, okay? So as you're working across, stop halfway across roughly and just give yourself a little check. Like, are those matching up? Yeah, now I feel like they're matching up. I did feel like I had a little extra back here. And often that happens right when you start. If I pulled a little tight right at the beginning, totally normal. Just give yourself a little break there and just make it work. It won't hurt how it looks on the other side. I'm just going to do real quick. I'm going to show you what it looks like. So what you get is this nice even seam. So here is the loop that we skipped on the back square, and here's the loop that we skipped on the front square, and they make just a really nice even seam, okay? It also, because you're using, let me show that end to the other side, because you're using the same color, it just kind of disappears. So it just makes a really nice seam doing it that way. It also gives it a little flexibility. So as the bag is, being stretched or whatnot, here's on the finished one. It's really hard to see in the black. Never mind. It just gives it a nice stretch. Okay. So, and it also gives, let's flip this over, very little bulk. Angle it sideways. You can see very little bulk on the back side. If I were to go underneath both loops, I would have a much bulkier seam, which is fine, but I think it just lies neater. This is a great way if you're doing squares for a baby blanket, a really nice way for it to lay flat. And it looks nice on the back too. I think the join looks really nice on the back side. Okay. All right, so I want to continue across because I want to show you what to do when you get to a corner. All right, I'm almost there. And once you get going here, oh, I'm doing it wrong. Should be front sides together. I wonder that felt weird. Okay. Once you get going, front loop, back loop, forward loop. You don't have to pull tight, and I actually recommend not pulling tight. Front loop, back loop. Just keep an even tension. Back loop. Back loop. Back loop. Go through. Front loop, back loop. All right, so let me, before I do that last one there, let's see how it's laying out. It's matching up pretty well here. So I've got one more double crochet here, and I actually have two more double crochets here. So I'm going to skip one on this side, and I think I actually did, I didn't skip one earlier. Let me go into the last one here and the last one here. And you won't ever be able to tell that from the front. Okay. What I want though are my two corners. There's the chain two space from the corner and the chain two space. I want those to match up. So once you finish, I'm going to go into the chain two space, slip stitch to join. Don't pull that very, very tight. I'm just going to pull up the loop so I can open it up, and I'm going to zoom out first. Okay. So here's my square one. Here's my square three. Here's where my yarn is ready to join square two to square three. Okay. So my yarn's in the right place. I don't have to cut it. All I have to do is take square two, fold it over. And here's how you'll be joining your corners. So we joined these corners. I'm gonna put my hook back in, pull this up. And this, using the same color yarn to join hides a lot of fudging it if you need to, okay? So now I want to join this corner space to this corner space. I want to join square two's corner to square three's corner. So I'm going to come into square two, go into square three, slip stitch to join. And now my corners are joined. And it's got this little bit of a wrap around here, but it looks just fine. Okay, and now your corners are joined. And because I didn't pull it too tight, they're not puckering or pulling in on each other. And then you're going to continue on. Find your first stitch. There's your, I'll zoom back in here. The front loop of the first stitch, the back loop of the first stitch, and slip stitch together. And across you go. Okay. Are there any questions about how to do this slip stitch join? Oops. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. So I want to make sure that you get to, I'm just going to pull that through to the laying it out part. Okay, so I'm going to continue. I'm going to pretend that I went all the way across and I finished my join right here. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now, according to our diagram, the next number is 4 and then 5. I'm going to lay them out first, make it look like the picture. 4, there we go, and 5. So all of 1, 2, 4, and 5 are joining your center square 3. Okay, so this is where I finished. First, I joined this way. Then I joined this way. My yarn is here. Then I'm going to fold this one in and join this way. And fold this one in and join this way. So I'm going to pin these together real quick so that they look the way they're supposed to and stay together. Just remember, right sides together. And this is where sometimes the numbering can help. Somebody this morning, ended up, she just folded it the wrong direction and it ended up over here. So if you can remember the numbering or number them, then you know you're connecting the right sides, the right squares together. There was, some of you have seen in the shop, and I would hold it up for you now if I knew where it was. I have no idea where anything is in there. A granny square jacket that I made. And the pattern, I think you end up with like 76 squares. And some of them, and then half ones as well that fit in these areas. And I ended up taking safety pins and pieces of paper and numbering all of them because it went across in rows, and then you were joining, the right side of 4 to the left side of 6. It got so confusing. Numbering them totally helped. Okay, so once you finish joining 1, 2, 5, and then 4, the next one you join is 6, and 6 goes right here. Okay. Now I'm doing obviously all the same. If you have all like the black bag, if you have all different kinds of grannies, you can lay them out and make them look like the picture to make sure you don't have all the yellow ones together, or however you want it to look. Take a picture of it with your phone, and then you'll know what order you want them to be in as you join them. We did that this morning in class too, and that helped keep people on the straight and narrow. Okay, now we're going to join 6. So our yarn is over here. So we need to cut the yarn. So that's one end we have to weave in, okay? But now we're going to join 6, and it's going to connect to 5 and 4. So I would start here, like that. And you can make that little noise if you want. Very satisfying. You could stitch it together this fast. And go there. And then I'm going to fold it this way. Get this back. Now, the thing about 6 down here is the bottom of your bag. Okay, so once you get to 6, you're going to turn it over. And this is the bottom. It folds up. And now we are going to recreate this. We went from the top down, and now we're going to go from the bottom up to create the other side of the bag. Okay, so this is still square 6. It's just folded in half. And according to our diagram, and when we did that, we went like this. We joined it. So our yarn is here on this marker over here. You can leave your yarn attached. And now we want to connect right sides together. This side of 6 to, this is number 8. Actually, it's number 7. The way the picture has it. Oh, it's number 8. It's number 8. So we're creating the other, we're just doing it in reverse order. So up here. And that one's going to go like that. Number 7 will go right here. Again, right sides together. Okay. So that's 7 and 8. We have another center square, which happens to be 9. So when we did this, sorry, when we connected, we went like this. Our yarn is here now, not at all convenient. So you have to cut the yarn there. Okay. So after you join 7 and 8, you do have to cut the yarn. Now we're going to add in 9, which goes right in the center. And you can decide which one you want to do it to. I'm going to go here first. So I'm going to start my yarn here at this dark green and go across. And when you get to the centers, let me zoom in here. This is a good example of, as I work across here, I'm going to come to a center that is already joined to 2 other squares here. When I come across here, just do a slip stitch through all of it, because these are already going to be connected into one. So as long as you catch one of them, it will keep the centers together. It will make sense when you do it, when you've got that many coming together. As long as they're already connected, as long as you connect to one of them, it should be just fine. Okay. Oops. So there's that one. And then I would fold this one. So now you're kind of playing around a little because they're already connected to other sides. And this is where numbering them might be helpful when you get to this point. Always stop though, unfold it again. And zoom back out. Okay, here's 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then I have 10 and 11 that I will join here. So I've gone here, here, my yarn is here. So I don't have to cut it. I can continue on. Join this one. I'm hoping this is clear doing it this way. And then add this one this way. Still don't have to cut the yarn. Okay. So now you have everything but these little wings right here, okay? And how the wings work, my yarn is right here. So what I can do, so I'm going to start over here. This is square 12 on your diagram. Square 12 is actually going to go, it's going to bend. That half of square 12 is going to join to the first side. And this half of square 12 is going to join to this side. So my yarn was here when I finished. So I'm going to do this side. Take it out, flip it up. Trying to avoid cutting the yarn. If you get confused, just cut the yarn. It's not a big deal. Okay. And then, so my yarn is here. I'm going to turn it back over. My yarn is here. Now, I can do a little bit of origami here. Kind of have to come from, let's see, how did I do that? I did it. Oh, you might have to cut the yarn here. Is that how I did it? That's how I did it. So I did this side. I would cut the yarn. Let me get it over here. I would fold it over and I would do this side and connect one side at a time so that it's connected right here. All right, do the same thing on this side. This one's coming apart a little because I used it this morning. Join it with the one half of your bag first. And then this way, join it. All right. All right, so that's one half, the second side that we completed. And now this has to get tucked in and joined to the other side. So I'm going to flip it back over. And this is going to get joined. You have to do a little bit of inside out action. So this is where the numbering might help. What I want to join here, keep 6 folded in half, is I want to join, this would be square number 4 to square number 13, okay? So they have to be right sides together. I'm gonna fold them to the back and join them. Here you do have to cut the yarn. Join it there, stitch across. All right. And then I turn that back right side out. Definitely feels like origami here. Two at the top. There we go. Okay, so I joined these here, and then I can do the same and join them there. And then do the same to the other side. You kind of have to turn it inside out so that you can get the right side of these two together, and then the right side of these two together. And when we're done, they'll be joined. I know what I'm going to do. Ingrid, when you get a chance to write up how to do the bag thing, I will follow your directions in video lining this bag. And I'll put it up so that people can see how to do it. Because I'll leave this one unlined until you get, so we're waiting on you, Ingrid.
I was thinking about taking pictures as I make the lining for my bag.
Perfect. Perfect. That would be great. But then I'll do it as a video too, because sometimes that's helpful for people and helps me remember as well. So once it's all, very carefully stitch markered together, you do have a nice bag. Are there questions about the joining? Because it can be confusing. Are you good? Okay. Hopefully that was helpful in eliminating some of the ends you had to weave in and knowing where you need to cut. If you're more comfortable doing one at a time, that's totally fine. Cut away. It's not a big deal. Okay. Any way you want to do it is fine. Okay. I just want to have time to talk about the straps.
I think having a video will be extremely helpful, putting it together.
Yes. Yes. So go back and you can watch this, and hopefully that made sense as far as you're doing one side to the bottom, you're coming over. These little side wings are the very last ones to join. And actually, after you've seen this and then you go back to her diagram, it does end up making a lot more sense. But I had to work through it a couple of times. Okay. Just remember always when you're joining, right sides together. And I must have done that wrong probably 5 or 6 times. So give yourself a break if you do it. The joining pulls out very easy. Where did we actually? Here, the slip stitch, you just pull, it just comes right undone. Okay. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about straps. So this wonderful pattern has some crazy straps. I did some research. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. I'm going to put a link in the chat for a video I found that was absolutely the best I found. All right, let's go to the chat. This is a YouTube video. By a designer. They go by Two of Wands. They do a lot of, and it's TWO of wands, like magic wands. They do a lot of crochet videos. She shows in this particular video, it's called 4 crochet cords, 4 types of crocheted cords, and the link's in there. If I'll post this also on the website so you can get to it if you need to. She shows 4 different ways and to do a crocheted cord and the benefits. She also does, and I found it fascinating, you may not find it fascinating, the kind of the anatomy of a single crochet stitch. You may not be that interested in it. So I'm going to give you some options, whether you're a little bit interested or not at all interested. But the third one that she shows is the one I'm going to demonstrate today. The fourth one that she shows in that video is the one that this designer used for this bag. Okay. I will tell you right now, where is it? You know, I think I had mentioned I started it on the black yarn. No way, no how I'm doing that on this black yarn. It is hard enough. So I have already decided, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. For this black bag, the method I have chosen, because I think it will look nice, is a totally easy way to do it. Okay. All I'm going to do is I'm going to decide how wide I want it to be. I'm going to single crochet a chain. And I think I want it to be about 5 stitches wide. So I'm going to single crochet 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 more 6. Okay. I'm going to do single crochet into the second chain away. And I am just going to do rows and rows of single crochet. I'm going to show this on some bigger yarn here in just a second, until the strap is as long as I want it to be for this bag. There's no right or wrong. If you want short straps, do short straps. If you want long straps, do long straps. There's no right or wrong to that, okay? So I'm just going to go back and forth until I have something that looks like this. Okay, so here, I just did it in some bigger, brighter yarn. And then, because the reason why this by itself doesn't make a good strap, super stretchy, okay? What I'm going to do is take, and I meant to bring some today, but I have moving grain, is some grosgrain ribbon. Grosgrain ribbon is ribbon that is ribbed and really has no stretch. It's a fabric-y ribbon, and I'm going to stitch it to what will be the wrong side. I'll probably get some black so you won't even be able to tell. I'm just going to machine stitch it onto my strap so that from the outside you'll see my strap, but it won't stretch because that grosgrain ribbon is going to hold it together. So that's what I'm going to do for the black bag. Okay. And I will, when I get the strap finished, I will put up a video of joining it, and I'll show you where you join it. I'm not Ingrid left a nice little spot here for me. I am going to, because I'm already stitching, I'm just gonna stitch all the way across, leaving a little tab on the inside. Machine stitch. You could absolutely hand stitch this. I don't recommend doing it in the yarn you're using. I would use a nice, strong, like a mercerized cotton that isn't gonna pull apart really easy. And unless you're already using a mercerized cotton to make your bag, you could use the same thing. Or machine stitch it on, okay? And once I get my strap done, I will make a video and show you how to do that part. And then I'm gonna zoom out here real quick. On this bag, I'm gonna make 2 straps. One from the front to the front, one from the back to the back. I'm not going to make them very big because I just want to be able to, just a handle bag so that it will open up. I'm not going to go across the bag. I'm going to stay fronts to fronts, okay? For that strap. And that's the easiest way. You could just do a single crochet strap. You could also buy a handle. I don't know if you know this, but you can buy bag handles. Joanne sells them. You can find them online. You can find all kinds of purse handles for handmade purses and things, and you could buy one and attach it. And they generally have either the hardware to do that or a recommendation of how to do that. Okay. So that's the black bag. Me and the black yarn, though, are on a little bit of a strike. So for the bag we just finished, this one, I'm going to do a similar version to what she did in the video, or what she did in the pattern. I had started one, and I don't know where I put it. It's a crochet cord, is what we're making. So I'm going to show you on this bigger yarn because it's much easier to see. And what you get is, this is the stitch I'm going to show you, and this is what it ends up looking like. It's hollow. It's a hollow tube. If you are a knitter, it's basically a crocheted I-cord is what we're making here, okay? So this is the crocheted version of it. What you can do then, because the one we're doing does have a little bit of stretch to it, if you can take a cotton cord that you can get at Joanne or order online. Usually you'll find it like where they do draperies and things like that. You can buy it by the yard, even in the ribbon section. And because I did the magic ring, I could loosen up my magic ring. And I could run the cotton cord through here. And it would make it really stable and not stretch. I wish I had some here to show you. I would just take the cotton cord, attach it to maybe a safety pin and run it through so that it comes out the other end. And then you could attach it and this would just cover. Or you could leave this a hollow tube. You don't have to do that, but that is an option. All right, so I'm going to show you how to make this crocheted I-cord. Okay. Let me have it in a couple of stages. So the reason and why I found the video really big crochet. If you're going to do this crocheted I-cord, 100% don't do it with your yarn for your bag first. Find the thickest yarn you have and the biggest hook you have. I don't care if they don't match because you're not going to recognize the stitches. So I want you to try it on something that's much bigger and much looser first, which is what I did, because then when I went back to my actual yarn, I knew where I was headed. It was much easier to do it this way. And she recommends that in that video that I gave you the link to. Okay, I'm going to start with the magic ring. I'm using way too big a hook here, but I'm hopefully it will help you. Oops, it'll help you see the stitches. I didn't even get the magic ring. And for the purposes of this, we're gonna do, I think the pattern has you doing 6 single crochets into the ring. I'm gonna make it a little bigger because then it's a little easier to see. It's not so tight, okay? So I'm gonna do 10. I'm gonna chain 1 for my single crochet. And then I'm gonna do 10 single crochets into the ring. And I'm going to make them very loose. So I want you to see all the parts of the stitch. Because a crocheted I-cord is actually worked, you're working into the wrong or the back side of your stitches, which we're not used to seeing. Really loose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Seven. 8, 9, and 10. You don't need a stitch marker for your beginning of round. It is a continuous spiral, which means it doesn't have an end. I'm going to pull that ring. I'm not going to pull it super tight because I want you to be able to see. Okay. So here's my tail. I do want it to be at the bottom, out of my way. So we just made 10 single crochets in a circle. If we were doing like the granny square, we would continue on, always working on this right side. To make the tube, it needs to curl up and then grow up this way. So we're not going to be working into those 2 V's. So normally we would make a single crochet into those 2 V's right there. But instead, and not just the front loop, not just the back loop, although those are ways you can make the cord, but it is still very stretchy. I'm going to lean the stitch forward. Right behind that back loop is this little, and if you're a knitter, it looks like a purl bump. So lean that back loop forward. Right here. That's where we're going to be making our stitch. Okay. Now, the directions that our pattern designer had you do was actually going into one of the yarns coming out of that back loop. You can barely find this little bar right here, let alone the next yarn coming out of it, okay? The only difference between this and what she did is we aren't going to get a really sharp spiral. We're just going to get just a really nice I-cord out of it, okay? Which I think is just fine. Although if you're feeling brave, I say go for it. Now, I did this really loose so that I could get into, now this little part of the stitch actually has a name. It's called the 3rd bar. So here's the front loop of my V-stitch, the back loop. If I pull that back loop over, there's that little purl bump. I'm just going to make my, and it's supposed to be tight. It is not a fully formed stitch, which is why it doesn't make a stretchy cord. And the first, I would say 2 rounds are really uncomfortable. And here's why. I'm going to make my single crochet into that one bump. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next. Here's the front loop. Here's the back loop. I'm going to pull that back loop over. There's that little 3rd bar right there. And you might have to really force your hook in there. And I did this really loose. You can imagine if you're using your regular yarn and your regular hook, how tight that would be. Go to the next one. Make your single crochet. The whole thing is single crochet. It's just where do you put the stitch? We're putting it into that 3rd bar. All right. Once you start to get around this circle, it's going to naturally, I'm gonna start to pull my, on my tail, excuse me. It's gonna start to curl in on itself, which is what we want it to do. Because it's pulling it tight. It's pulling all of our stitch forward by working into the back. It's pulling it forward. You know, when you work into the back loop of a stitch only, you know, you get ribbing in crochet, or just the front loop of a stitch, because it tilts the stitch to make it look like ribbing. So I can kind of see where I started here. So I am coming up around. Which is why I did not pull my magic ring really tight yet, because I wanted to be able to see. Keep going. Now, make sure, and here's a good example, it's easy to accidentally catch 2 loops there. Make sure you're just catching that 3rd bar. Coming back around to where I started. So I'm going to pull my tail to close up my magic ring a little bit, and it's going to start to curl in on itself. I don't have to slip stitch to join. Here is when I started my this round I just started. Here's the 2 stitches, front loop, back loop, tilt it forward. There's the 3rd bar again. Right here. And let me tell you, having a little needle or a little smaller hook like that to pull it open until it gets a little further along, really, really helpful. Front loop, back loop, tilt it forward, 3rd bar. By about the end of this round, it's going to curl in on itself, and these little 3rd bars are going to start to pop out and be a lot easier. So A, see, and B, get into. But the first couple rounds, like any good project, are fiddly. So again, I'm doing this really, really loose. Hopefully you can help you see where you're supposed to make the switch. I've never really, I don't think I've done a lot of crochet projects. I think there's only been one time where I've had to work into this 3rd bar, but it was, I don't think I really knew what I was doing. I was following I looked at a video for help. I didn't really understand what it was doing at the time. It was creating a wave in this stitch because we didn't do it all the way around, but it was creating for shaping. And so it's already starting to make kind of a cup shape here. So this may be, and I promise it does get easier after about the 2nd round here. This may be a little too fiddly for you to make a strap like this, which is why I gave you some of that other option if you want to crochet your strap. I totally endorse buying handles. All right, I'm probably coming back around again. So it's already, I'm definitely getting more of a cup shape here. And my front loop, my back loop is already starting to curl in, and that 3rd bar is popping out for me. And you just keep going until it's as long as you want it to go. This round is not easy. That bump is it just pushes it out because the front loop and the back loop are pulling in, and it just kind of opens up. Okay, so you just keep going. I'm just going to move to this one that I've been doing. This only had 6 stitches on it. So what you do is you get like this really neatly patterned, and you get a little bit, you can start to see it's starting to spiral a little bit. The one that she shows you in the black, you just can't see. It has a really distinct sharp spiral because you're going into an even tighter stitch and it pulls it even tighter. But I think this one is totally acceptable to go. So there's my thumb. I didn't even have to hunt for it. It just kind of popped out right there. If I were to roll the stitch out a little bit, I would be able to see there's the front loop, there's the back loop, and there's my thumb. There's the thumb. Third bar. And you just go around and around until it's as long as you want. Happy to answer questions about this crocheted cord. Everybody's scared to do it. That's why there's no question. It does make, maybe just get around here a little further. I'm doing this, like I said, really loose, but if you were to do it with the correct hook and the correct needle, once you've got it practiced, the first 2 rounds are miserable when you're using the correct hook and the correct needle. There's no easy way to say that. They're just horrible. But once you get past that, it really does get very easy to see that third bar. And it opens up a lot easier for you. Whoop, I got 2 loops there. And it does make a cord that is pretty and not, I'm pulling on it pretty hard. It doesn't have a lot of stretch to it, which is nice. You could leave it this way. It's really pushy. Almost feels like garter stitch if you're a knitter. Or you could run the cord. You could mix up without a pen. You could take, I'm going to pretend this is a darning needle and your cotton cord or a safety pin, even better. With the tag. You could, let me zoom out just a little. You could pretend this is our cotton cord, which would be much thicker. They come in a variety of thicknesses. You could run it all the way through, pull it out the bottom, and then you could just keep crocheting with the cord in there. I could keep going. Once you get it started, and basically you're just creating a tube all the way around your cord. You just have to keep moving the cord over a little bit, but if you feel comfortable doing that, you could absolutely do that. And that's probably what I will do for this second bag. So just keep finding you get lost. And I did that one in the wrong spot. It just didn't look right. I went 1 row down. I'm going to stop, find my next stitch. Always go back to finding your front loop. Okay. So I'm ready to do my next one. I'm going to flip it here. There's the next stitch, front loop, back loop. There's the third bar. And I'm ready to go. And you just keep going around. And this cord could just be there in the center. Or you could thread it through at the end. Like you would thread a piece of elastic into a waist string. So either way, totally fine. Depends on how comfortable you are doing it. Any questions? No. So it's I'm starting to get the further I go, I'm starting to get a little bit of the twist on it. You can see it has a little bit of a spiral to it. So that's a crocheted spiral cord. How about you? So any questions about joining or straps? Hopefully I gave you some accessible options. No one has any questions, good for you. I'm just gonna stop recording here for a second.